Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Random Cloud Chats. Today we are talking about a lot. We start off talking about Rishab's issue with the Blind app and social media and how we're trying to address these things. Then we dove into talking about our experiences with Help Desk. I share a story that I've never shared before about almost joining the military and how I almost rage quit a job. And then Rishab talks about how he was so shy that he had to sit with his sales team to develop his people skills and talking on the phone, and overall just a bunch of things that we shared about our help desk experiences. Then we finish out with some shout outs and we talk a little bit about some videos that we highly recommend you viewing and taking stuff one step at a time, and just a whole bunch of great stuff. It's a great episode, so let's dive right in.
Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode of Random Cloud Chats, powered by Learn to Cloud, and the Cloud Duo is back. And this time we are talking about our experiences working in help desk, how we got into it. Gwen and I both share the same story. That's how we entered into tech industry. So yeah, we are all about help desk.
All about help desk. So for those who are watching a video, for those who are listening audio, we also have a video version if you're interested. It's on our YouTube channel. But for those who are watching, my eyes are very red just because I literally just got back from the gym.
Yeah.
And then immediately hopped in the shower, and then I hopped right out to record this. So I might look kind of weird. I don't want people to
assume stuff.
Jump to assumptions and conclusions. But it was just literally just because I took a shower. But yeah, happy to be back. Man, it's been a wild week. But yeah, how's your week been?
Good. Yeah, let's jump into it. How's your week been? Mine has been okay-ish.
Oh, yeah. You stressing out?
I think I'm okay now. I'm getting better sleeps. I'm not so tensed. I'm trying to stay away from Reddit and Blind a lot. Reading less news about recession and stuff. Like, I still try to follow, keep myself informed because of how the stock market is right now. But yeah, other than that, I only maybe if I see like a LinkedIn post about a recession, like a layoff or something. Other than that, I'm focusing more on helping a few candidates that reached out saying if anything is available on at Twilio, because they were either laid off or are not having a good chance with interviewing, as most of the companies have hiring freezes. So yeah, trying to stay away from the negativity, but trying to be active in the community and just seeing like how it's impacting us. Apart from that, technical things that I worked on is the GitHub Actions video that I did. So you can send SMS alerts using Twilio whenever your CI/CD or your build fails. Which I think was cool. There's gonna be a blog post coming soon, so I'm working on the blog post, trying to make it, as informational as I can and a beginner friendly as I can. Apart from that, I am thinking about ideas for the lightning talk. So some of you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
What have you prepped that yet?
Not. I do have like 2 or 3 in mind. That I can just. I'm ready to present them, but I do want to still research and explore if I can get a little bit more creative with the talk and still keep it like a short lightning talk. We'll see. But yeah, so I think I logged into my Azure portal like after 3 weeks today. Twilio is keeping me busy, but yeah, I found out too many resources just running, because I did the Reactor session, I did some with you, so I still had the crypto.net ticker running
from September.
Yeah, and I'm like, why is this running? So I cleaned up a few resources. So here's a reminder for you all. Whoever is, trying to get into cloud, learning cloud, have few VMs, few resources running in cloud, go check them, see what can be shut down, what needs cleanup. And then I just did the same thing for AWS. I'm like, while I'm cleaning this up, let's clean up my AWS account too. But yeah, that's what's been up for me this week. How about you?
It's a good tip for everyone. Luckily, the only thing I use is Azure,
Mhm.
and I'm in it every day. But even then, I just keep a bunch of resources because it's so easy to deploy them. Just
Oh yeah,
AZ group create dash name
it's
all that and such.
that's
So
one thing like
it's
I love about Azure is deleting them is so easy because
mhm.
if you have managed them really good. So I know like I have a resource group and everything regarding a project would exist in that resource group, and it's as easy
Mhm.
as just deleting that. Um, Whereas I had like some challenges with AWS, and I'm not the best person when tagging stuff for my personal stuff because like okay, when I was doing it work related, yeah, we had like proper tagging, naming convention and stuff, so you could easily see what's what. But yeah, with personal stuff, it's all over the place, and it's hard to correlate. Okay, this is the database for which project again?
With AWS.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so typically what I end up doing with my resource groups is especially like I like to keep like a naming convention
Hmm.
with projects. So for example, I've been lately working all around with two different projects. So the
Yeah.
AZD serverless template and then the what the hack serverless project as well. So whenever I create a new resource group and I do these all, I always just use the CLI. I don't usually go into the portal much. So I'll create and I'll do like AZD template resource group 1
Hmm.
or one dash resource group. Actually, I always do dash and then resource group, and that way at the end of the day I can just do a simple like for loop in bash or whatever, and just do okay, so for every loop through all the groups that start with this that match sort of this pattern and then delete them, so they're all done by the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just that's how I keep
That's
it going every
pretty
single day.
pretty clever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the some of the so there were personal portfolio that I had 2 years ago or 3 years ago. All of that stuff was still in AWS running, because
Mm-hmm.
I have a bunch of credits being part of the community builders. But yeah, I'm like, why is this running? I don't need it. And back then I was not a great um, engineer, not engineer I would say, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was not great as at naming things and following all these good practices. Um, and
Yeah,
especially three
definitely.
years ago, like I don't even remember like what are all resources I created. So it was a bit hard to clean those up.
Yeah, I think I've developed a good like workflow because I use Azure like every
Yeah.
day, and like it's the only one I really have to care for. So now I know I kind of just stick to like CLI, and then I'll just loop them when I need to delete them. As long as I'm following a naming convention, it's gonna work. Um, but I can see how that would be kind of difficult to
Hmm.
like develop similar practices if you're hopping around clouds. But besides those things that we're talking about, yeah, I'm still working on the AZD developer template. They finally fixed, so the functions host
Mm.
had a GitHub bug,
Hmm.
not had a bug that was in GitHub, and they finally deployed the update to dev yesterday.
Okay.
So in the morning it was like 18 hours ago, but that hasn't been pushed to prod yet, so it's not working in the portal yet. So I have to wait for that.
Mm.
Once that's done, I can continue. But that work essentially has been paused for the past over a week, which is great. I mean, not great for the work itself, but great for me because I'm also
Yeah.
working on the serverless September thing, and that thing it's all done at 3. So I have to upgrade everything and then different packages, and that's
Mm.
been a little bit more work than I expected as well. Yeah, and then I've been doing videos. I think I did another one on reliable architecture. I have a couple of other ideas of other short videos that I want to do. Today, Hanuk, shout out Hanuk. He's like this is admin YouTuber.
Okay.
Um, he was like, "Oh, do you have all these videos queued up?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I literally
Just
wake
yeah.
up that day and I'm like, I want to go talk about this, and I sit down and I kind of write my script out. I still write scripts, so and I still do need to research certain things. So essentially, the like research and what I need to do takes an hour, but then once
Hmm.
I do it, it takes me 10 minutes to record, maybe 30 minutes to edit, and then I have a new video up. But it's pretty cool how like now I'm at a point where like I
Yeah.
want to talk
Yeah.
about this today. I'm just yeah, I just do it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. But yeah, doing content. I'm trying to make these shorter videos that are very like you'll sit and watch them for 7 minutes and then you'll really grasp a concept and then build on each other. So the next one I'm going to do is load balancing, which is a part to implement redundancy, which is a part to implement resiliency, which is a part to implement reliability, right? So it's like I want everyone to understand like proper architecture, and there's like so much to it. So plus it's in my opinion it's pretty interesting. You know, it was cool. So the other day I posted on Instagram, I was like, I think I'm going to get into solution architecting after advocacy, and then so a bunch of people from Microsoft follow me, and then someone who's a lead on an architect team DMs me. It's like, whenever you're ready, my team is ready. I was like, that's so freaking cool. So
the power of social media,
dude. The power of like putting in the work and putting yourself out there.
Oh yeah.
And really really showing people that you know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I don't mean it like
really
you if you're like a social media influencer, you would get a role.
You'll get a job. No, yeah.
I didn't mean it in that way, but yeah. You can see Gwen's, Twitter. I think that's how, like, I think your YouTube and Twitter was really your go-to. Not even more Twitter too. Like your YouTube is just full of resources, and also you can see the growth.
Yeah. It's funny because I feel like my videos in terms of like production and I think were better before, but the content and my personality is way more developed now. So the way I speak to things is extremely more confident and informed than what it was like a year ago. But my videos a year ago were a little bit more like, I was a lot more focused on like, oh, I need to have like this animation and this. But now it's more so like I can sit for 7 minutes and talk about a thing and people are going to like, watch it, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Scott Hanselman once was like, don't forget to do the work. I think he was referencing like people like, they just think that they'll tweet their way into work or tweet their way into a job. And it's like, it's not like that. Like,
no.
But anyway, that's what I'm up to this week. Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm moving too. I feel like my living situation every week changes.
Yeah.
Changes. But like, that's part of like being an adult, I think.
Yeah.
And being and really trying. I think I talked about this in the last episode, or maybe it was just you, but I have this issue where I see people's opinions and I'm like, oh, that's maybe what I should do. And then whenever I get to just sit around with my own thoughts, I'm like, no, this is what I actually really want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been like looking at apartments because I've decided like, all right, I'll give New York City a chance if I find an apartment that's way bigger than where I live now and way cheaper.
Okay.
And within a commute distance to the office, because I realistically don't have to be at the office for more than like maybe once a week. So there are some options. There's stuff's in the works, so we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, in terms of like what you were saying about not worrying as much as with the recession and things like that, because we don't really control much. I think a lot of that gets to me too, where it's like I was starting to see that sort of change the way I wanted to live my life.
Yeah, it does.
Which you got to be careful with. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, if I couldn't afford to live here and I didn't have anything saved, then I definitely wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes smarter decisions, but don't let it impact change your entire life, I would say, or change the way you entirely live. But yeah, that's the week. Oh, you were talking about Blind. I don't know if everyone knows about Blind.
Yeah.
You want to give them a quick summary?
Yeah, I just joined it, I think a month ago or 2 months. A month, I would say. And quick summary based on how much I know about it is I found about it when I joined Google. People would reference, or talk, developers would talk about Blind. I'm like, so it's an anonymous app. I consider it to be, Reddit, but for tech, like specifically tech workers who work at big tech. And the way you sign up for it was pretty clever. You need to have you have to sign up with your work email, because then they can verify that you're from Google, Microsoft, Twilio, whichever company you work for. And at that time I was a bit, I think like not ready. I'm like, I'm fine. I don't need to know this side of the world.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just like with Reddit, right? But then now I'm like, okay, there's recession happening, layoffs happening. Let's see like how Blind is, and I see like a lot of screenshots on social media of Blind posts, and people talking about making 400, 500K and still debating if it's enough is a bit discouraging. I find it a bit discouraging, but yeah. So I signed up. It's been a month. The only post I see now is recession, hiring freeze. A lot of fresh graduates, fresh professionals who are looking for work are it's a bad time, and it's discouraging to see like they have lost hope, because some of them were in loops, some of them were doing their final rounds of interviews at Microsoft or Google or whatever the big companies we have, and now they didn't receive an offer even though they performed really good, because business is not hiring anymore. So yeah, I feel bad for them, but all these posts I see, it just it's too much for me, I would say, because then you see posts about recession, people being laid off, and then they're looking for new opportunities, looking for references. So Blind is also, I think, kind of known for references. You can like reach out to, or you can post saying, hey, I'm looking for references at Google, and this is my year of experience, whatever. And most of the time you find someone who is willing to refer you after, I don't know, you exchange DMs or stuff. But yeah, that's about Blind.
Yeah, everything in moderation. I think I have a Blind account. I don't know if I signed up with my Microsoft email or when I was at ACG.
Okay.
And I checked it out once, and then I was like, all right. But I'm at a point now where social media can't really pull me in anymore. So I haven't checked it at all, and I don't really see screenshots because I have my timeline, my Twitter timeline blocked on my computer. So yeah, I don't really like check it. I do read like newsletters and such, like tech ones, and the news on the hiring freezes and layoffs have slowed down. I won't say it stopped, but it wasn't like, I feel like last week was like just red alert, and the weeks before that too, like, oh yeah, this company. To be fair, a lot of companies made changes, but I haven't heard of like anything massive again yet. So I mean, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but
yeah, for this week, I would say I haven't heard anything. And then I also found out someone posted this again on Blind, that their recruiter did reach out back saying that it'll the kind of they have paused to make any decisions on the interviews that have already happened for hiring. So the decisions have been paused till, I don't know, mid-August, and they'll reach back out once that date has been gone. So we'll see. But yeah, I haven't heard anything major like 10-15% layoffs happening. But yeah,
so we'll take that as good news, and we'll take it week by week, and next week we'll see what's going on. But yeah, everyone in moderation, stop checking your phones so much. But yeah, so I would say mentally you're in a pretty decent, like, mental health check. Where you at? What, like a 1 to 10, 10 being the best, most peaceful you've ever been, and 1 being like just terrible?
I would say right now, like yesterday and today, I won't rank it on week because I don't remember how it was. 6, 7, I would go with 7.
Yeah, I'm about there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, cool. Anyway, I wanted to talk about help desk today.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the biggest reasons why you and I bonded.
I would
Because
say so.
our sort of progressions were like into work and into cloud were pretty similar.
Yep.
And oftentimes people will ask, well, how do I get started? Like, I can't go straight into cloud or I won't get hired, which now I think is a different story than it was a couple of years ago. I think now there's more junior cloud roles. But we're also big fans of, like, you know, start help desk. You learn a lot. And I think in help desk, there's also skills that are just hard to pick up in other ones that are really useful.
Yes.
But we can talk about that as we go. But I wanted to start asking you how did you, so what was your job before help desk? And then how did you find the job
in help desk? Okay.
Yeah, how did you find it? And then I'll talk, and then we can talk more. Like, I want to essentially talk about the progression. So I want to talk about what we were doing before, how we found it, how we like applied and interviewed, our first couple of months of what onboarding was, and then like our like sort of middle time, and then when we felt ready to leave. And then we can talk about, like, I don't know, any funny stories or horror stories that we have.
Sure. Yeah. So I was studying. Luckily for me, my course kind of prepared you for, you know, help desk or IT technician kind of job. So my diploma that I did was computer networking and technical support. So, you know, a lot of hardware, a bit of networking, a bit of Linux administration, and then Windows administration, and that was it.
Were you doing that while working?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
You were in school and working?
Yeah, that's how.
How long was the diploma for?
It was for 2 years. So during that 2 years, the first year I worked like part-time at a gas station. And then the second year I worked part-time at the gas station and also as a pizza delivery guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was school like at night or?
No. School was in the day. So I worked.
And you worked at
night?
I
worked night shifts at both places. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I do have funny stories about my, you know, school days. One of the professors, so my eyes would be red because, you know, I haven't slept for the entire night. And he's like, "Were you gaming at night?" And I'm like, "No." And like I was working. And he didn't believe me. He didn't believe me at all.
What?
I'm like, I was working, and there was whole, you know, this. He was just, yeah. He was like, I don't care. If you don't want to do well in studies, it's fine by me. You can play games and stuff. And I'm like, okay. And then I saw him the next day, and he sees me getting off the bus.
Working? Oh, okay.
Getting off a bus in the morning at like 6:30. My college was at like 8. And he looked weird at me. He's like, "What are you doing so early here?" I'm like, so what I used to do is so my shift would finish at 6 and I would take a bus to school. I won't go home because like the commute.
You're 6 in the morning?
Yeah.
Home.
So my shift was from like 10 to 6. So it started at 10 p.m.
Jesus.
And
all right.
I'll get done by 6. And then I'd take a bus to college instead of home because, you know, the commute takes 30 to 40 minutes.
You didn't have time.
Yeah. And what I would do is if I went home, I would sleep and then, you know, be late for school.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. He's like, so you were serious when you said you were working? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, why do you like work so much? And, you know, like, so I talked to him. I'm like, you know, there are expenses, there are, you know, tuition.
Yeah, of course,
the international tuition is, you know, way more than what you pay as a domestic student. So it's almost 3 times more. Yeah.
What?
Yep.
You should have told him you were playing Pizza Delivery Simulator.
Yeah. But yeah, we bonded good after that chat because he was
impressed.
Yeah, and we chatted for like an hour because, you know, I was there at 6:30, 6:45 and the lecture was going to start at 8. He had some free time, and so he started asking me of what I want to do and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I want to like get into tech. At that time I didn't know much at all. Like I just knew there are software developers, and then because I was doing technical support diploma, I knew like you can get in as help desk technician or IT technician. So he's like, okay, yeah, that's a good profession. And then he started talking. He served in military, so he worked with the Canadian Armed Forces, and he was a system admin, and then also he also worked in cyber. So he talked about a lot of different professions that I could have, and I think that conversation really I needed that because I was just focused on, okay, I'll just get into help desk and that's it, kind of thing.
Yeah, you never know who's going to come along and have a conversation or some sort of impact on you that may not completely change your journey, but impacts it in a way where like you have more guidance and whatnot.
Definitely.
That's freaking awesome. Did you know that you wanted to get into tech when you were in India?
Kind of, yeah. So some of you may not know, I was studying computer science. So I did take computer science degree. I did that for one semester and then dropped out because I saw so the only way to succeed in India was either you have to put effort, but the thing is there's too much competition because we are 1.5 billion, almost 1.5 billion people in India.
Jeez, yeah.
So in order to get into a good institute, which has good placement stuff, you get good internships, it's really hard. So you get to tier 2, tier 3, and then all of the other colleges or institutes that you can kind of ramp up and maybe get a good offer if you're really ready to put in the work. But it's hard to manage with you're also studying 8 hours a day at the institute, and then you're also studying on your own. That doesn't make sense to me. And I felt like the money that we were paying was put to waste. So I was like, okay, I cannot do this. And then because I saw few seniors and they would be so depressed and so tensed about securing a good job with so much competition. And I get it. Like people who do it now, it's like I have much respect for them. And I really do know that I'm privileged that I could come to Canada and I had the financial and the emotional support from my parents. But yeah, I kind of knew that I wanted to be in work with computers and work with technology.
So from finishing your diploma, so from moving to Canada, as soon as you moved, you were like, oh, I gotta go into school and work? Or did that take you a while to figure out?
Yeah, so it took me. No, I knew that I had to work, just because of, as I told you, the tuition difference, and then I had to cover my expenses. So whatever the rent was for one room and living expenses. Yeah, so I knew that I had to work, but I couldn't get part-time work because I was new to Canada. I didn't know about resumes, how we build it here in North America. My English speaking skills were not that great then, so it was hard to get that first job. I think it took me 2 to 3 months to get a part-time job at a gas station.
I remember you told me you printed your resume and you were walking around, right?
Yeah.
Yo, this is and so I know all this stuff, but I want people to understand, because I think sometimes people, don't have the full context of where we come from or what we've done. But I really want people to understand your story because, you weren't born in Canada. The difference with me is I was born here in the U.S. Yes, I lived in South America for a significant amount of time, but I have the privilege of being born here. Mm-hmm. But you weren't born in Canada. You didn't know the language. You didn't have anyone. You didn't have no money. I mean, you had to support your parents, which is obviously super important. But I remember you telling me there are some stories that I feel like, just because your tone of voice is so chill. Remember that time where you were like, yeah, I almost got robbed, and I was like, okay, and then you were like, yeah, it was a couple of times at the gas station. I think you told me that he had a knife or something.
Yeah, he was bleeding, and I'm like, either I'm dead today or
yeah, But yeah, these you printed out how many resumes and you just walked
So
around like saying like, hey, I need a job.
yeah, so what happened is Misha and one of my buddies, they got
Misha's your partner.
my partner, yeah,
Or-
for context.
yeah.
And then one of my buddies that I'm like met him here, but we kind of had, known, like we had common friends back in India. So I didn't know him personally, but it was good like to have some connection here. They got jobs like within 3 weeks as we landed. So I was like super depressed. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like,
What's wrong with
I
you?
can do,
Yeah.
normal work. Like, this is not something, a lot more technical or anything. Like, and I can learn. So yeah, one of the things my friend suggested is print out resumes and give them in person because, pre-COVID, and you made an impression.
Wow.
Like you dress up, you go in person, you give them resumes. And I think I interviewed at 3 places right at the same time as I was giving them my resume. They're like, oh, are you free now? And I'm like, yeah. So they would sit for like 15 to 20 minutes and have a short interview. And that's how I landed my role at a gas station, though.
Okay, for context, people, this was only like, what was this,
2016.
2016? So this wasn't like 10 years ago or
Oh,
anything
no.
like that. This was still relatively like, I would say still somewhat recent. And then from there to where you're at now, dude, like, it's just, we'll get into this as we continue with the story. But okay, so you get to Canada, you take some time to find a job, but only because it was tough for people to offer you a job. So then you get your job, and then you do 2 years just working night shifts, and then also going to school, and then you graduate.
Yep.
And how long did it take you to find a help desk gig from graduating to getting the job?
So it didn't took me like a lot of time. So
Okay.
in our diploma, we had to do a 2-month internship, and it has to be in IT. So it could be.
Did they hook you up with like, oh, you can go to this place or this
No,
place?
they
or
did
you
had
have to find
like a placement, event, you could say. So like there were 30
Yeah.
companies, and we were 84 students who were looking for internships. And I couldn't score opportunity there because I realized that on the placement date that some of the students that were in my diploma, they already were working somewhere, or they had prior experience working in IT.
Okay.
The reason they got a diploma was they didn't have any credentials. So they, in order to level up, or their company was paying for the diploma.
Yeah.
But even then, you still have to do an internship, and the internships were not paid. So this was part of whatever the placement curriculum the college had. And yeah, so I didn't score a role there. So again, I was in that hustle mode that I had to find a company on my own. So I sat with the dean. There were like 6 students who couldn't get a placement, and she's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "What's wrong with me?" She's like, you're doing such great. Like, I had really good projects. I had, the grades were fine. Nobody cares that much about grades, but they were still fine. They were good. But I really had like cool projects that I built. There were 2 of them were in Linux. And she's like, why can't you score like a placement? So I showed her my resume, and then she gave me tips and stuff. And then also.
Do you think some of that might have been like just your interviewing skills and how laid back and maybe some people think you're like uninterested?
Yeah, I remember one of the interviews. Like I was like they were really interested in me. There were 2 questions where I was just like, I knew the answer, but I was blank. Like I couldn't answer it. I couldn't form like a good sentence to answer it. And I think that lack of confidence is, a no-go, especially if you're interviewing where, you have 80 students who are also lined up behind you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so worked on that. Did some mock interviews. She was really helpful. I'm to this day grateful to her. Like she did some mock interviews to,
It's awesome.
yeah, bring that confidence. And then she shared my resume to any of the other companies that were still looking for placement students. And then I got a call from one. They said, "Hey, are you free now?" And I'm like, "Okay." They said, "It'll take 15 minutes." I'm like, "Okay." So they did a 15-minute interview. They asked about, basic stuff, internet works, how DNS works, and, HTTP.
Okay, cool.
Few stuff about hardware, like, RAM, SSD. If this happens, what would you do? Kind of stuff. And yeah, I landed that internship. So the way I got the help desk role is after that internship, they wanted me to stay there. So they gave me a full-time offer that I could join the company as, technical support specialist after the internship or after my graduation.
That's awesome. So a couple of good things there to shout out to people is, one, lean into the resources that you have. Like you were at this program, so the fact that you said it was the dean that helped you out?
Yep.
Yeah, that and then I think this also goes to like hiring managers, or maybe you're a mentor on a team or whatnot. If you see someone struggling with something, but they're putting in the work and they're like a great like candidate or employee, like help them out.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing there is like, if there are programs out there that have internships, they're great ways to potentially land roles, stuff like that. And then also just like resilience, man. Like just freaking keep going. Like, what if you were the type of person who suffered one rejection and you just let that get to it?
Yeah.
You would have not been where you're at now. And often, and then the last thing I want to add there is just all it takes is one person to give someone a shot.
Oh, definitely.
Like, you're a fantastic employee and look at where you're at now, but you had no control if someone wanted to give you a shot or not. And someone did, and like that's where you're at now. So yeah. So all right. So you land your internship. Your internship turns into a full gig, help desk gig. And yeah, your interview process was a couple of technical questions. My interview process was interesting. So my job before help desk was the Apple Store.
Yeah.
But we have somewhat of a similar education background as where. So I dropped out also of computer science. No, I was systems engineering.
Okay.
After a year, and I was living in Ecuador, and then I moved back to the U.S. and then. The only thing, I didn't really know what I wanted to do for work, but I knew I had to lean into just like something technical because I took some classes, and even in high school I had some interest in it. I was like, all right, I'll lean into that. But with me, I've always been great at just interviewing, talking to people. It's just always been like a skill set that my parents worked a lot to develop. Like I remember we were little kids and they would always be like, whenever you enter a room, make sure you say hi to absolutely everyone. And I don't know if your family's like this, but we used to do like massive family gatherings where there was like 50, 60 people, and they would legit make us go like shake everyone's hand, like, hi, how are you? And if we didn't know them, we would have to be nice to meet you. I'm Gwyn Seguinza. And like my brother would have to say his name and whatnot. And we were little kids like walking around this. So they always instilled in us like, make sure your head's always up, make sure you always communicate clearly. It doesn't matter if you're younger, if you're smaller, like you got to use your voice for something. So my ability to talk to people, my ability to interview, my ability to kind of like prove my point has always been pretty great. And now with like YouTube, it's like way better. But I knew when I interviewed at the Apple Store, it was like my first job, and I was maybe 19 or 20. And usually people in the US start working when they're like 16.
Yeah.
So even when you're 19, you potentially have like, oh, you worked at a grocery store, oh, you worked as a clerk somewhere, or you worked in the mall somewhere, or something like that, right? So I knew I had nothing. I'd come into nothing. Yeah, not even my high school was from Ecuador, so like on my resume, people could think like,
does affect,
or something like that. Yeah. So, but again, I had the ability to interview well, and I remember they interviewed me at the Apple Store for like. On the same day, I did like 4 interviews, and it was initially 2 candidates. It was another person and myself. And then the first round is done, and then the hiring manager was like, which way are you walking? I'm like, oh, I parked over there. And he's like, oh, I'll walk with you. And then the other person went the other way. And then he like whispers to me, he's like, oh, can you stick around? We want to interview you for the next one. Then they bring on the next one. And then I got an offer, like, which was crazy because the Apple Store is like for people who are looking for like maybe like a college job or something like that. The Apple Store has great benefits.
It does.
Great. Has a flexible scheduling. Especially if you're in school, they'll like help you figure that out. And the starting pay was pretty good compared to like minimum wage here.
Oh,
I remember
okay.
minimum wage when I started was like maybe $9 USD.
Okay.
And I think I started making like $15, $16.
That's pretty good.
So there was a difference, right? Yeah. And I was a kid. I had like no money, but I had no debt either. So I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So then, I got into the Genius Bar, which is like essentially the help desk at the Apple Store and whatnot. But that was like, I guess technically my first technical job. And then I got tired of that. And I've never told this story before, but I'm gonna do it on this podcast because we keep it real. I got tired of that, and I wanted to get promoted to a role that I knew that I deserved. I just knew it. And if you ask anyone who was my colleague there, they will say like, yeah, Gwen deserved that. But because I was, especially at that age, I was like such a rebel, and like and this is also why college didn't work out well for me, because I always felt like the teachers were just like, they like abused authority. And in my opinion, not saying that they did, I just like, oh, they think they're better than us just because we're younger and they're older and whatnot. But yeah, like I didn't really get along too well with like the head of that store. Like there was like leads. Like, essentially, like just think like your senior or the lead of your team, right? I didn't really get along too well because I can't remember what it was, but I think a lot of it was just me feeling like I deserved something or whatever. So I interviewed for a role that I deserved to get, and I interviewed for it twice and didn't get it. And then I interviewed for the third time and I didn't get it again. At that time I was upset and then I had asked for feedback. I was like, what am I doing wrong? And no one was being straightforward for me until one day I was just like upset. I was like, F this, man. I'm freaking quitting right now. People think I rage quit, but I didn't. I actually gave like a month notice.
Okay.
But I was really upset, but it's like a blessing in disguise, because if I had stayed there and gotten the promotion, I'm not saying I wouldn't be where I'm at now, but things could have been different.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, I quit, and then I quit in like August of like I can't remember the year exactly. But I quit, and then I'm like, you know what? I don't really know what I want to do with my life. And I had always wanted to join, not always, but I had an interest in the military.
Oh, okay.
Because especially the Air Force, because I just felt like what they were doing technically was really cool. Like I think
I have
planes
same
are super
interest.
Cool. I think all the controls in the electronics, which I'm like, I feel like if I wasn't doing cloud, I'd want to do like a mixture of like electronics and then
definitely
and such, or like mechatronics maybe, like what Iron Man does. That is so cool. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? F it. I'm gonna join the Air Force. So I go through that process of doing that. Until this day, my parents make fun of me. But I go through that process, and I'm about to. Oh, this was the year where Donald Trump. Got it was like against Hillary Clinton, the election, right, that year. And I remember he wins. They announced that he won, and then I was like, "There's no way," because in the military, your goal is to honor your president, right? Like he is essentially your commander. Like anything he says goes. I was like, "There's no way I'm doing that. There's no way I'm gonna like support this." So I decide to not go through with it, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I tell the recruiter I'm not doing this, whatever. And that's like around, November. And then I'm like, essentially out of it. I hadn't been working since August. So then I was like, all right, I got to figure something out. So I started applying to like everywhere, every IT job I could find. And then I was starting to find these small gigs that were like, oh, here's a gig that pays $24 an hour. You got to unbox a bunch of computers and set them up. And it was like a day thing. And I would do them because I needed money. So I would like drive an hour. And it was funny because I'll always remember this, because it was like, the requirement was like bring a box cutter, your own box cutter, so you can open the boxes. And I would have my box cutter in my jeans, and I would go and I would like set these things up. I remember one day I was so pissed because I drove like an hour and a half to the gig, and then I get an email from the person. It's like, oh, we don't.
Oh my God.
And I was like, God, freaking. And I had a shitty car back then too. That the radiator. Oh my gosh, I told the story a couple of times, but I used to have a terrible car that if in the summer it would overheat because the radiator was trashed. So I would have to pull over, wait till the traffic like kept moved. That way I wouldn't get standstill traffic because it would overheat. So I would have to pull over, and that made the commute longer, of course. But anyway, so yeah, I hear back from this job, this help desk gig, that they were at they were based in Boston.
Oh, okay.
And then they were like, okay, let's see, let's give you an interview. interview well and whatnot, and then I remember they asked me some question. I was like, I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what the answer was supposed to be, but I was like, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, but if this was like the real life situation, I would probably just ask a colleague to point me in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because I was interviewing with like the lead of the help desk team there, and he was like, oh, you know what? That's a good answer. I was like, oh, thank God. And then I got an offer, and then I started working with them. And then there was another interview level, because what they were doing is essentially they were like they would pay you, like, say, I think I was making like maybe $1 more than what I was making at the Apple Store.
Okay.
But they would sort of like, they would assign you a team that was a different company. So it was like third party support.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So like you weren't paid by that company. That company paid the company, the help desk company, and the help desk company paid you. Yeah. But like the amount of money, I knew from the beginning that the amount of money that they were paying, I wasn't even seeing like maybe not even half.
Yeah.
So I knew I was getting like, you know, what's the word? Like
pennies?
Not cheated, but
peanuts.
Yeah, pennies to what peanuts to what they were making, right? So anyway, that's how that went. And then I had to interview with the company that I was gonna be on. So like I was already part of the company, the tech help desk company, but I had to interview where they wanted to place me.
Oh, okay.
And the lead dude there was one of those dudes that had all the certifications that he had in his email signature. And I remember because it was funny because he would have even the expired ones.
I'm guilty of this. Do you know that?
You did it too?
Yeah, I had them for a month. As soon as I passed my solutions architect.
What gig was what job was this? Help desk?
No. Yeah, I think that was no. I was cloud engineer then.
Oh, dude.
I had it on my personal email. Oh, okay. Just wanted to see how it looks, you know. But I had it for the month. The
badges?
And then my dad goes, he's like, "What's these badges on the bottom like you have?" Because he cannot read them, and they're like really small on his phone. And I'm like, he's like, "It's ridiculous. Like your signature is so big."
Your dad roasting you.
Like,
yeah. This dude, it wasn't even the badges. He just had the lists.
Oh my God. Okay.
You know how sometimes there will be like some people will put a disclaimer of like, oh, be eco-friendly. Don't print out this email unless you absolutely have to. Like,
I see. Yeah. So it was like a disclaimer
kind of
at
format.
the bottom saying that I'm certified.
But he had all his certifications there listed, even the expired ones. And I just thought that was interesting because that was the kind of dude he was. He always wanted to he's super helpful, but he always wanted to one up you. But I learned a lot from him, not gonna lie. I learned a lot, but I just always thought that was funny. But yeah, interviewed with him, it was great. And then like I started the gig, ended up being there for like a year and a half, and we can discuss more about what that process was like. But what was your onboarding? Like, what's the thing that you remember the most about your onboarding?
I also want to mention that after like internship was gonna end, and then they were like, "We're interested in hiring you, full time." Mm-hmm. I did had an interview with. It was one interview, but it lasted for like hour and a half because it was with 5 people. So the way that HR wanted to do it is, see, like you still have to go through the interview process, but it'll not be as
like
rigorous as, because we already know you, we know your work ethic, we know your technical skills, but still we need to have on record that you did go through the interview. But the issue was that everybody knew me, and she didn't want anyone to have like a bias, so they handpicked people who knew me the least.
Okay.
And it was so funny because I would say never lie on your resume, because this is what happened with me. So I listed SQL, so SQL, because I did write like some select queries, when I was doing my internship for one of the tickets that were assigned to me. And after some Googling, it's easy. You can do select star, whatever. And I solved the ticket. And I'm like, I know SQL. I wrote it on my resume. And then so he's the greatest colleague I have. He was interviewing me, and we became like great, colleagues after. So he was a cloud engineer then. He said,
wait, he didn't know you well
he didn't know me that well.
Okay.
And he's like, "Oh, you have written SQL. Could you do like a join statement for me real quick. Just assume tables and do a join statement. And I was like, what he's trying to say?
Like a whiteboard kind of thing?
Yeah. They wanted, so I was in
Yeah.
a meeting room and they wanted me to write a join statement. And he said you can name the tables whatever you want. And I'm like, so the first word I wrote is select. And then I did star and then from, and then I'm like, I don't know after this. He's like, do you need some hints? I'm like, I'm gonna be honest, and I don't know how joins work and stuff.
Okay.
It's like, okay.
Then what?
He's like, the fact that you wrote the first part of it is good enough. Like, you know, like what the syntax is, but you just don't know the concepts, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you should probably remove that from your resume or either learn SQL. I'm like, okay.
That's good advice. That's good advice.
But yeah, onboarding experience was, so I think the training was for a month. But I was doing product-based support. So I think it took me like 3 months to, you know, actually get used to everything. Like if this...
Like get in the flow.
Like you know, how... Okay, let's say the traffic enters, the user logins, you have some printers that connect and all of that flow. Like you need to understand how it goes from, you know, front end to the app to the back end, and then how it talks to our, you know, SaaS that we offer and like the cloud things. So it took me, almost 2 to 3 months to, you know, kind of nail how the data comes from the user until the end, just so that I can support, you know, our customers better. The onboarding experience was good. I had the greatest team. Like I could ask them
awesome.
Questions. I used to feel shy, you know, because I think whenever you join, you have that sense, you know, you have the imposter syndrome hitting, like, am I at the right place because I don't know like stuff.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I was making $21 an hour, so that was huge for me. So I was like, I definitely faked it till here, and now they'll like just fire me. So that was the thoughts that were going in my mind because I was making $11 at the gas station. So
at the gas station, yeah.
I'm like, what should I do? And then I told one of my seniors who was in product support, I'm like, this is how I feel. He's like, dude, just ask me, like, what's wrong? So he was like really tenured. I think he was there for like 9-10 years. So he helped me a lot. He helped me understand like everything. Like if this happens, if this is what customer is asking, tell them this. So that made my onboarding really smooth, I think. What about you?
Dude, that's such a different experience because before I joined this place, and I was going to be like their first full-time IT person.
Oh.
Before that, they just had someone who was in like Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
I see.
And the dude that was there was going to leave like 2 weeks after. So he was just there to help out. But the onboarding was supposed to be done by a remote person who was my boss, based out of Boston. But that was a whole new system that had happened when they hired me.
Mm-hmm.
So they hired us, and then the goal was to have like, you know, one help desk person per each of the regions. Each region has multiple like individual locations. And I was just like, the first week on the Friday, so I started on Monday. On a Friday, some dudes is upstairs testing the generator that's in the network closet.
Okay.
And he's replacing the battery, and he runs a test on the battery, and the battery fails. No, he cuts the power to test the generator, but the battery in the generator fails, so the power goes out.
Yeah, so everything
is down. Everything goes down because, you know, everything is run on like networking. Nothing is cloud based, and all the systems, like they would have like just thin clients, so nothing lives on the machine. You have to remote into something. Phones were down, printers were down, everything, and these were clinics, so everything would run on them. So I start getting calls, and then because the person who was working was a dude, and obviously had a deeper voice than me, and they were like, "Is this help desk?" And I remember saying like, "No," because I was so nervous because the thing wouldn't stop ringing, the phone wouldn't stop ringing, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, what do I do? What do I do?" and then luckily, the dude comes in who was like the part-time help desk dude. He's like, what's going on? Like, I got paged. I was like, I don't know, but like they keep calling here and telling like the power's off, something like that. So then the head dude, the one who had all the certifications in the email, he would always work remote, but he lived a couple blocks away.
Okay.
So he just shows up. He's like, oh, I gotta check out what's going on. Something's happening in the network closet. And it turns out it was like the dude who was working on the generator. And then I remember the next week there was like this employee meeting about just talking about stuff. And then they wanted to introduce me in front of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, they're like, hey, Gwen, like, hey, everyone, this is Gwen. It's gonna be our new IT person, gonna be here full time. And I remember I made a joke. I was like, hey, everyone, yeah, I'm new, but I didn't have anything to do with the power outage, so don't blame me. And so I turned it into like a joke that kind of broke the ice with everyone.
Oh, okay.
But I think starting from like the beginning, I knew that I was gonna sort of succeed if I knew everyone and was able to have conversations with everyone. So I think that incident happening so early on in my career kind of set the tone, because then after every interaction that I had something to break the ice with.
Definitely.
Because I could easily be like, oh, like how did the power outage like impact you? Some people would bring it up to me. It's like, oh, well, I bet your phone was going off crazy, and like things like that. Yeah. And I would tell them, yeah, I was nervous my first week and whatnot. But so the onboarding was like shaky, but because because I was essentially the only person assisting a bunch of locations, it was just day one, like tickets. So I had like within 2 weeks, I think I was ready to go and just like fully in it. And I think with the whole year and a half, I think until the very end, I was still doing like new stuff, and which was cool. It was still pretty challenging. I just got tired of like the nature of the work, but the work itself was, and by the nature of work, I mean just like, because people can be pretty
definitely
pretty difficult to work with when they're under stress. Not everyone, but like, and you know, and that takes a toll on you. But the work itself was pretty challenging and such. But yeah, I would say the onboarding was interesting. Could have been better for sure, but it is what it is. And then it took a couple of weeks to get into the flow of things, and then I think it was a good year or so that I was just like in the flow and like, all right, I like this. But once the year came around, that was when I was like, I want to make a change.
Okay.
Like I want to do something else. I don't know how long it took you to be like, oh, I want to get out of here. I want to do something else.
Yeah. So I think it was one of the things, or one of the, feeling that I had was, it was initially because, I started taking calls like after 1 month. Those, I think, I'm still an introvert, but back then I was just so shy, and I would stutter. I would have a really hard time to make a conversation. But working in help desk, you need to have that skill. You need to have like public speaking skills. Absolutely. Because you're looking things up. You don't want to like sit in awkward silence, and especially if the other person who is calling you is talkative. Like I would have like really hard time trying to make a conversation or talk with them. But yeah, so that I remember that feeling exactly. And I know, like, and the good thing is we it was a smaller team, so like we were only 30 to 35 people in the company. So 5 of them being developers, 3 were in sales, and then 3 were in help desk. I went to the sales team and I'm like, I need to get better at talking. So they ran a training for me especially. And then they said, sit with us. So like move your desk here. And we are always on phones. You can also like have your desk here. See how we speak. So I started like shadowing them, but also taking calls with help desk. But that I needed that. And after that, I think I was like really comfortable with, picking up the phone. And then, but I think after like 6 or 7 months, so one of the person left the technical support team, and we were only left with 2 people. And then also like we had like a couple of issues back to back. There were times when I would see 11 calls in the queue and I'm picking the first one. And now you have to like, solve this person's issue, and you also have to take the 11 calls. And I'm like, there is no way I'll be done by 5 p.m. Even though I had like a colleague, but it's, it was, I think, too much workload. And, the company's vision at that time was we are not going to like backfill positions because, it's not needed. but having back-to-back issues caused that workload. And I think that's when I was like, okay, this might not be the perfect role that I want. And like I was already, I think we had like 3 tiers. So I started in tier 1 and now I was in tier 2 after like 6-7 months. So I'm like, yeah, I think I want to move to like a different team. And also it became repetitive. Yeah, because once you know the product, and there was not any big changes coming, I knew like what could go wrong.
You bring up a good point where it's like, oh, I don't like this because it's making me do something that I don't know and I'm uncomfortable with, versus, oh, I don't like this because I'm challenged. No, I'm not challenged anymore. And those are two very different things. Yeah. And it takes like a lot of your own awareness to go, like, for example, you went out and you're like, I don't like this because I'm introverted and I don't know how to speak to people, so I'm gonna get scared and like try to do something else. It's like, no, well, that is a skill set that you can develop, and you went and you did that. For me, I think it was pretty much the same, where it's like I just got tired of the work essentially. And like a year in, that's when I started like getting serious about learning cloud and like being cool with the infrastructure team and getting AWS certified. Because when I got a year in, I was still there for another almost 6 months, because that's how long it took me to pass my certification.
Oh, okay.
But during that time, that's a good thing that I was like so used to the work, and like there were new things here and there, but I would like have a lot of time to study.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's the good thing about I guess not. I could say help desk in general, but especially with my job, it was like once I knew like everything what could go wrong with our product. Yeah, it's even if I get like a highly like a high priority case, I knew like where to look at, but I would have time at the end of the day to study, or between tickets to study cloud. And the way I approached it is I didn't know anything about cloud. Like I know you got introduced to it by the work you were doing. Similarly with me, when I learned more about our backend services, I realized, we use AWS. Like, what's AWS? And the cool thing is that they decided to take me on the summit, even when I was in help desk. So I went to the AWS summit. Clearly, I would say I was the least knowledgeable person there. But when I saw like 3,000 people, talking passionately about cloud, I saw like, a few talks, and I was like just amazed. I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And then, the actual process began. They were like, you might want to look into, 1 or 2 certifications to ramp up. But yeah.
I remember I went to a summit too, but I paid for it myself. And like, because it was in New York City, so like, train ticket and for myself. But like, I got the day off work, luckily. And I also remember having that energy, like, wow, like there's a lot of interesting sessions here, and I could just sit here for free and like learn. Yeah. And like get certified if I wanted to. That was like slightly after I got my certification, I believe.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But because I got my certification, I think around early spring, and then summits are usually in the summer. In
the summer, in the fall.
And then I left the help desk gig in like August-ish, around that time. Yeah, but going to conferences early on and kind of just getting a feel for what you're getting into, I think is like super fascinating. Yeah. But then then we kind of like transitioned out. Like you moved up, right? Like like you were in the same company.
Yeah. So after the summit, I started the discussion. I wanna do cloud, and then they suggested the AWS cloud practitioner and the solutions architect. So I started studying for cloud practitioner, but I didn't have a clue what AWS is. So it took me a long time to get used to all the services, to understand basically like how cloud works. I get the concept, you're renting a server in someone else's data center, but it was, there's more to that. There's a lot more to that.
Way more. Absolutely. But what's cool is that your company supported you in like moving into what you wanted to do, because oftentimes companies will, like, if you're great at a role, it makes more sense for them to keep you at that role, even if you don't like it. Because they don't have to hire someone else. But the fact that they supported you to like move into what you wanted to, that's freaking awesome. More companies should do that. Yeah, definitely. I didn't. I left. I did have discussions on like, oh, is there like other roles here, but it just wasn't the case. It was just like a help desk gig, and that's kind of it. And then around that time too, I had moved to, my parents had purchased a home.
Okay.
And that place was going to be increasing the commute by like half an hour.
I see.
So it was going to be over 3 hours of driving just to get to this help desk gig. And that was like on top of me already not being happy, that was going to make it even worse. So that's when I applied to the gig that I ended up getting, the sysadmin gig at the Azure, the place that used Azure. But we should, because this episode's going to get long. We got to wrap up soon. We should do the next one where we talk about like our experiences. Because you did cloud engineer after, or cloud, like, was it more cloud admin or cloud engineer?
Yeah, it was, the beginning was kind of cloud admin. And then, it changed into cloud engineer, because I think that, and it was all like, planned by the team, because I needed some experience. They didn't want me to, shut down VMs.
How long was it before you got into the cloud engineer gig?
How long did I spend in help desk?
No. So you did help desk, and you sort of did like cloud admin for a little bit, and then a cloud engineer. Like I know it was the same role, but the work itself.
Yeah, I see. Around 3 months, I think I was just doing cloud admin stuff, looking at Cost Explorer, and looking at, more of it was just shadowing, not engineering stuff. If something like there's an escalation of a help desk ticket that involves like a backend service that went down or something, I would investigate that.
Okay, so for me, I think I still did a lot of help desk, sysadmin stuff, but also did cloud, and it wasn't dedicated cloud stuff until maybe like 9 months in or so. So then I got promoted officially to cloud engineer after that. But I think we could talk about that phase, like
definitely
transitioning into cloud, but still doing kind of help desk stuff in the next episode, because I think there's a lot there too. And then we can talk about that, and then the full cloud engineer role for the next one, because this one's getting like long now. But anyway, yeah, that's interesting. Help desk, I mean, we should do a whole one on help desk horror stories. Like I whenever people ask like what's the worst part of help desk, for me it's always the printers, because the printers, the toner, there's no way to change toner and not get it all over you, at least your hands. Like I don't care how neat they say that they package it. It's like, yeah, it's so easy, just it always gets. And I would always wear like button up shirts, because I liked to be business casual, even though it wasn't really required. And I would always, and then I started wearing like a, what is it called, like a smock? Like that used, I started wearing that whenever I needed to
change toners.
Change the toner. But man, some of these machines were like, because they're expensive, and these clinics didn't necessarily have major budgets, like they would just let them, like if they're not completely broken, like don't repair them. But
I know
some of these were like, they would like spit out toner.
Yeah.
It was wild. It was definitely wild. But anyway, do we got any community questions? Or it's usually how we try to end the.
So we didn't get any on the Learn to Cloud stuff. So Learn to Cloud Twitter, Learn to Cloud Insta.
We got to start doing posts to ask specifically. So each week, just ask what questions do we want to answer.
I think so. Yeah, I think we did that for like after the first episode, and that's how we got questions.
So make sure we'll do that this week. I mean, for every episode.
Yeah, I had few on my personal account. Most of them were related to help desk, so I'm glad we did this episode. I can see 3 questions that were, hey, I work in help desk, like how do I move?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think
this one's gonna be helpful for him.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you can already see like a trend with Gwen's and my story is we looked for opportunities. So we got familiar with the role that we were in currently, and once we were comfortable, like we started learning stuff that would put us to the next position. So having projects, having 1 or 2 certifications, and it's easier, I would say, to move within the company, because you already they know you.
Yeah, definitely.
You have a lot of support. So reach out, see if you have a cloud team, and if they're willing to let you shadow them, and see if there is a growth opportunity.
Lean into what you have around.
Exactly.
That's probably the biggest thing, especially if you're good and people know you're good and like you're a great person to work
Oh, yeah.
with. Like people are gonna want to help you. Yeah, but if you suck and like you're mean and like you don't do your work, like then don't be like, oh, I don't know why no one helps me. It's like it's probably because you suck. But anyway, yeah. Lean into what you got. Also like be aware of like why you don't like the work. If because Rishab gave like a good example, like, oh, I didn't like it because I was shy, but then I worked on that and then I started to like really get into the rhythm of things. Like because that could be something that you might be
facing,
like,
or experiencing,
and, like, and don't take for granted help desk. Like you learn documentation, you learn ticketing, you learn troubleshooting, you learn working under pressure, working on deadlines, people skills. Like I could talk to anyone now.
Yeah, I think for me, so the number one issue we would have is with internet and like networking with our product.
Yeah, and
I think I learned about so many tools. I learned about how DNS can always be an issue. I learned about all of SMTP, HTTP, different protocols because our product talked to printers. But yeah, you learn a lot in help desk because there's like a variety of cases you will get. So you like have that knowledge at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like and do work your way. Like stay in long enough so you can have it on your resume and use it to get your next role. Whenever that's up to you, like how long you can stay there. I'm not saying stay if you're completely miserable, definitely not, but yeah, there's a lot that you can learn from the role.
Definitely.
The next one we should talk about our beginnings with cloud as like professionals.
Yeah, I think it will be like a good
interesting one.
Next episode, following this one.
Yeah.
I definitely see like the audience might be interested given all the background that we shared. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, cool. We got shout outs?
Yeah, I have shout outs on my Notion here. Let me just bring it up.
Kurz
Gazette.
I know what channel you're talking about.
Yes.
It's a great channel. I can't pronounce it.
It means in a nutshell. I know this. It means in a nutshell. So it'll be in the link below if you're watching on YouTube. These are both YouTube videos. If you're listening to the audio version, it'll be the show notes. The first video is by Gwen, our in-house YouTuber. It's how I organize my phone for productivity and focus, as we talked about, Blind, Reddit, and how I'm trying to monitor my use of social media, especially with the times we are seeing right now. Great video. Go check it out. It'll help you if, you're trying to avoid social media or, trying to focus more or get productive in your day. And then the second one is change your life one tiny step at a time. This one talks about the science behind, how you can bring change. You don't have to take huge steps that I will study 2 hours a day now because I want to quit help desk and get in cloud. It takes tiny steps. It takes habits, build those habits into a routine. And then, so go check both of the videos. They're really good. Those are the community shout outs for this episode.
That's awesome. Just to add before we end to that, tiny steps. So I've been focusing a lot on my health ever since I want to say really, really focusing since the beginning of May.
Yeah.
And then now today I posted a photo and then I had it's the first time I got a couple of comments from replies on Instagram. It's like, oh, your skin looks amazing. Oh, you look a lot more leaner. And this is it's been 3 months and I've been essentially working out every single day, eating cleaner, all these kinds of things. But I didn't really see progress until maybe the past couple of 3 weeks where I really saw significant progress. It's stuff kicked in, but never at a time where it's I can't I used to beat myself up when I didn't see progress after doing stuff for maybe a week. But now I'm more I just gotta keep going. I know I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there. It's a day at a day. If you really start taking it day by day and you stop focusing so much on the outcome or what ends up happening, you'll get there. So I really like this one tiny step at a time thing. It's I'll give be patient with yourself. Give yourself the time to really, really put in the work, and it's gonna be so much more rewarding.
It'll be definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Put in the work, and you never know what you're capable of. You gotta show up every day for sure. All right. Anyway, I'm getting too inspirational. All right, let's end it, everyone. We'll have a post somewhere, either Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, for more questions, because we love talking and addressing those kinds of things at the end here. But yeah, Rishabh, we'll see everyone in the next one.
See, yep.